Okay, so for today's and next Monday's lecture, we'll look at the different strategies to manage tropical deforestation. And yes, we still have lessons on Monday before your holiday start. Okay, I know you can't wait. I can't wait too. But in the meantime, let's try to learn as much as we can about the different strategies to manage deforestation, which I think are really quite interesting. Okay, before we look into the individual strategies, I would like to set the context for you. So please turn to page 11. First bullet point. Most people agree that the problem must be managed, but that the strategies are not as simple as fortifying fences around the remaining rainforests. Economic, political, and social pressures will not allow rainforests to persist if they are completely closed off from use and development. So basically, the point here is this. Definitely, we have to manage deforestation. Last week, we have learned about many different dire impacts of deforestation. So we have to manage it, but it's not as simple as just saying that, okay, we're going to stop cutting down trees at all. So we will just fence out all the remaining forests and we will not touch these forests anymore. Right? It's not as simple as that. And I think that was also reflected in many of you in our tutorial last week. So you recall the tutorial question was, can and should deforestation for palm oil be stopped? And I really enjoyed looking at all your answers. So majority of you said that it should be stopped, but it cannot be stopped. So that's exactly what this paragraph is talking about, right? That we know that this is a problem that we must manage, but we cannot simply stop deforestation because of the economic, political, and social pressures, right? So there's a tension here. We know that we have to manage deforestation, but at the same time, we know that it's not as simple as just saying that, okay, from now on, no more deforestation. So I'm going to bring up some of your answers from last week, and from there, we see how we can apply it to today's lecture. Okay, so first one, answer from Sheyan. So she talked about how deforestation in Indonesia and Malaysia should be stopped. And I like how she looks into different aspects of deforestation and the effects of deforestation. So for example, deforestation can affect the locals, right, the indigenous groups living in the rainforest because they are denied of the resources that they need, such as food, such as rattan, and so on. Then other than humans, deforestation also affect the animals, right? And it's not just about the local impact, there are also global impacts such as the release of carbon dioxide, which worsens climate change. So clearly, deforestation is a problem with multiple dimensions, right? With repercussions and multiple scales that we do need to manage. Now, at the same time, many of us also argue that but we cannot just stop deforestation. So from Joanne from 2801, some reasons why. Some reasons why we cannot stop deforestation in the context of palm oil is because palm oil is used in about half of processed and packaged goods we would find in supermarkets. So it's not as simple as switching to alternative sources of vegetable oil, and palm oil is also extremely cheap. So if we want to switch to alternative oils, it will cause a spike in prices of everyday goods like shampoo, which would cause economic disaster. Definitely yes. So a lot of forest resources are used to make our everyday products. So if we stop deforestation entirely, how then do we make our everyday products? And also how then do we keep these everyday products affordable for the masses? Okay, so Joanne also goes on to say that of course we learn about the benefit, right? Palm oil is extremely efficient, it is cheap, it can be grown on soil that many other crops cannot. And as much as we want the palm oil industry to take a step back and stop deforestation, our growing population contributes to growing demand for goods that require palm oil to be made at an affordable price. So therefore, with population growth, it's very difficult to stop using palm oil or to stop deforestation entirely because we have to make products and we have to ensure that these products are affordable for the masses, especially essential needs like shampoo and stuff like that. Okay, then from Gavin 2002, he also mentions about how deforestation cannot be stopped because it drives economic growth, right? So we know that, for instance, in Indonesia, the palm oil industry itself accounts for 11% of their GDP and employs more than 8.4 million people. So countries will always prioritize economic growth over the environment in order to seek development. And with these high profits and ever increasing demand, deforestation cannot be stopped. I'm not sure whether it's right to always prioritize economic growth over the environment, but the point here is yes, forest resources are important to the economy. So countries cannot simply stop deforestation because that will also stop a significant part of their economy. Okay, then from Ashley, 2805, the most important reasons why deforestation for palm oil will not stop is due to the underlying drivers of deforestation, which is both population growth and economic growth. So she talks about the increase in population as well as the drive of companies for profits, and hence deforestation will not stop anytime soon. I think this is a very good point, right? We cannot just stop deforestation because the drivers which drive deforestation are still going on. So there's still population growth, there's still economic growth that's going on. So it means that we can't just stop deforestation entirely. Okay, this is the last one from Sankap 2801, right? He says that I don't think it's possible to stop deforestation because of the nature of capitalism. Capitalism always encourages producers to expand their business by acquiring more land. And since the government prioritizes economic growth over environmental protection, relative freedom is given to these producers to continue deforestation. So indeed, yes, right? In our capitalist economy, for the capitalist economy to go on, companies will always want to make more profits, and governments will also want to grow their economies. Okay, so the point here is that we cannot stop deforestation entirely. Okay, so therefore, when we look at managing deforestation, our solution must be based on what is feasible, not overly idealistic. Okay, so when we look at strategies today, we are not looking at strategies that are put in place to entirely stop deforestation. That will be overly idealistic, right? But it doesn't mean that we cannot manage deforestation. We can still manage it, put in place a solution that is feasible, right, that is built on the principle of sustainable use and development of rainforests. So we can still use resources in the rainforest, but it must be used in a sustainable manner, right? It cannot be used in a way that is too excessive, that in 10, 20 years we cut down all the rainforests that we have and then there's nothing left. It shouldn't be like this. So it must be based on a principle of sustainable use. Okay, so we have to use rainforests in a responsible way, right? As well as try to restore any degraded land and establish protected areas where possible. So the approach that we should be taking is one that is feasible and one that is based on sustainability. Okay, so the strategies that we need either is to we can encourage forest growth and conservation, or we can discourage deforestation. But the point here is to discourage. We didn't say to stop entirely. We can't stop entirely, right? But we can try to discourage. We can try to use forests in a more responsible and sustainable manner. And of course, all this will depend on the government because the government will be the one carrying out such strategies. Okay, before you look into the individual strategies, I have some further considerations for you, which I think will be good for you to write down as well. These are not in your lecture notes. Okay, the reason why we can use forests, we can still continue to use forests, right, without having to entirely stop deforestation, is that because forests can be renewable resources. So you remember in Theme 2, you learn about renewable versus non-renewable resources, right? So plants in the forest, as well as the animals and so on, the soils, all these resources are considered renewable if we use it sustainably. So if we are able to use forest resources sustainably, it means that it can become a renewable resource because the trees can grow back, right? If you cut down a piece of the land in the forest, over time you leave the land alone, trees will start to grow back in the area. So forests can be renewable resources if we use it sustainably. But of course, if you cut down all the forests and you don't give any time for the forest to recover, then forest cannot be a renewable resource. Okay, so take note, a forest can be renewable when used sustainably. Okay, then another thing I want you to remember is that a lot of these tropical forests are located in LDCs, or what we call less developed countries. So there are three main tropical forest regions in the world. One is the Amazon forest, located in South America. Bulk of it is in Brazil. It's also in Peru and other countries in South America. Another forest belt is the Congo Basin forest, and another one is in Southeast Asia, so in countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and so on. So many of these countries are less developed countries. So for less developed countries, they tend to prioritize economic growth and poverty reduction. And we can't really blame them, right? Because a lot of these countries have huge number of people living in poverty, and therefore the priority of many of their governments is to promote economic growth and to reduce poverty. And I think that is fair, right? That is fair. So we cannot expect them to entirely protect the environment at the expense of the welfare of the people. Okay, and many of these countries would then tend to value forests in an instrumental way to see forest resources as a resources to fuel economic growth and improve material standard of living. So this is not entirely right, but it's also not entirely wrong. Okay, so my point here is this, right? At the end of the day, sustainable use of forests is key, right? We can still use forests because if we use it sustainably, forests are a renewable resource. At the same time, in many of these less developed countries, they also need to provide for the basic needs of their people. They also need to ensure a certain level of income for their people. And therefore, we cannot just say that we stop deforestation and we shut down the economy and that's it. Okay, at the end of the day, it's a balance between the economy and the environment. So I want you to have this in mind as we look at the different individual strategies, as we try to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of each strategy. Okay?